How do you take an obnoxious and annoying character and make them interesting? Hi, I am writer and artist Dan Finlay, and this is The Story Grind, a show where we look at storytelling so we can become better storytellers. On today's episode, we are studying issue 1 of Frell from Image Comics. If you like getting into the weeds of the craft of storytelling and trying to get better at it, please like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon below. Alright, here we go. Here is the creative team behind Frell. Frell is a long-running series, and as of this recording, they are up to issue 12. The first issue is 24 pages long. Here's the logline. Meet Elsie, Lord Fluffy Britches, and Patch, 3 indoor cats lost in the not-so-great outdoors during a nightmarish rabies outbreak. Without their humans to protect them, the cats rush to find their way home before they're eaten by a forest full of rabid beasts on their tails. Don't get bit, don't get scratched, don't become feral. Alright, let's get into it. Scene 1, 5 pages long. We open the first scene with a cat on a windowsill, staring out a window into the woods. The words, "This was perfect, this was every day," is superimposed over the image. We cut to present day where the cats, Elsie and Patch, are locked in cages inside an animal control vehicle. Elsie is calling out to Lord Fluffy Britches, who is also locked up somewhere below them, but they can't see him, and he's not answering back. Patch is getting embarrassed by Elsie's pleading. The animal control workers who are up in the front of the truck are radioed for another pickup, and they wonder if they have room. Elsie pleads again for Lord to say something as the animal control vehicle rounds a corner and sees a red-eyed fox in the middle of the road. We get a double-page spread as the truck veers off the highway and tumbles down an embankment, landing upside down. The text reads, "Before everything flipped upside down." The back of the truck has cracked open and cats are escaping. So this is our inciting incident. Notice that it's happening pretty fast, and with all inciting incidents that happen quickly, that means we really don't get a chance to see much of the ordinary world these characters inhabit. But then again, these are cats. How much ordinary world do we really need to see? I think showing a cat sitting on a windowsill pretty much sums up their life until this moment. At the same time, that's kind of a detriment. I know that if I don't have an interesting ordinary world established, it's going to be difficult to create empathy for my characters, and in my opinion, I think the story could potentially face the same challenges. Let's see where it goes. Scene 2, 6 pages long. So we open with this great double-page spread of the woods and the crashed vehicle. The title spans across the 2 pages with the word Frell, and additional text at the bottom that says Chapter 1, Indoor Cats. That's a very interesting contrast to the visual we're seeing. It's a nice way of setting up the challenges they're going to face. In this moment, Elsie is calling out to Lord again. I want to point out this title text. There's something about this typography overlaid over the woods that makes it feel like a horror movie to me. I'm not sure if it's the sharp serifs or the outline, but I'm getting an 80s horror vibe from this, similar to the way that Stranger Things evokes this feeling with its own title. This might be a good time to talk about the art. The humans, woods, and vehicles are all drawn in a very gritty style, while the animal characters are all drawn in a very childish animation style. It might be just me, but I'm getting a Don Bluth animation style versus a Disney animation style here. There's always been a slight difference. I don't know. I might be imagining things, but it's an interesting choice to have 2 distinct drawing styles in the same scene. I'm not sure if it adds anything to the story. Maybe it does and I'm just not seeing it quite yet. What do you think? So back to the scene. Elsie calls out to Lord again and asks what just happened. And Patch says, "Well, we were at home, you, me, and Lord. Those men put us in those crates." Elsie cuts him off and says, "Don't do that. I'm not stupid." The way Elsie replies to Patch is a little aggressive to me and surprising because she did ask the question. She's not getting points as a likable character right now. So this is an interesting technique for getting exposition out to the reader. I'm not a big fan of it because when you have characters who already know the information, but they still say it out loud, it's obvious at its exposition. Also, the way Elsie responds makes me like her a little less. But back to the scene, Patch continues telling us everything we pretty much just read. And Elsie's reply is wondering where Lord is, again. Patch says, "Why are you always worried about Lord? He always finds his way back." Elsie says, "No, he doesn't always." And we cut to a flashback of a family searching the woods and calling out Lord's name. I think this is the 4th time she's called out for him. In fact, I think it's the only thing she's actually said in 7 pages, and it's a little obnoxious. And I kind of dislike the character a lot right now. I want to point out the panel treatment hinting at this transition from present day to flashback. The panel border is cloudy and undefined, and the colors in the panel have changed into a monotone blue-green. So every comic we looked at so far on this channel has dealt with flashbacks in a very similar way. Soft borders with a change in color representing the past. Elsie says they have to find Lord and head home, but Patch wants to stay because he thinks the drivers are going to come back and help them. He thinks it's similar to when their owners leave them at the vet. Elsie tries to convince Patch that this isn't the same thing. Their owners didn't want to give them up when animal control came. So this is a much stronger way to get exposition out there. Having two characters arguing over their beliefs and putting information out there to support their argument feels much more organic to me. Back to the scene. Patch refuses to leave, believing the humans are going to come back, but Elsie knows that one of the drivers is dead in the cab, and they're not getting help. Again, she devolves into this strange single-mindedness of finding Lord and going home. And again, the character doesn't feel authentic to me and is still getting on my nerves a little bit. A walkie-talkie rings out deeper in the woods, and Patch and Elsie run off to find the person the radio belongs to, because it has to be the second driver. Scene 3, 2 pages long. Elsie and Patch follow the radio voice into the woods and discover the other human who has been ejected from the animal control vehicle and is stuck in the branches of the tree, dead. A voice crackles through the CB radio asking for the drivers to respond. Patch sees the dead drivers and swears to himself. His hopes of being rescued by the two humans is crushed. This swear also tells us that even though these characters are drawn in a childish animation style, this story will not be for kids. This is interesting to me because in my previous video, where I analyzed Kill Your Darlings, that story was also dealing with a children's drawing style that has swearing and violence in it. But the themes in the story were centered around children's fantasies and daydreams and imagination, which made the story a little muddy because it didn't quite know where it belonged. Was it for grown-ups or was it for kids? So far, Farrell's themes seem to be grounded in reality, which makes this feel like it sits firmly in the grown-up camp. Back to the scene, Elsie sees the dead body and says she needs a minute. The CB radio says that they've discovered a newer, stronger variant. Between the logline and what we've seen so far of the red-eyed fox earlier and this new information, we know that the rabies virus is spreading fast between animals. Elsie goes off on her own, and I'm not sure if she's sniffing catnip, but she sees a very large ghost cat in front of her, who implies that she's done something wrong. We get a quick one-panel flashback to where Lord was first introduced to the family. And then back to present day, where the ghost cat asks if Lord knows what she did. So there's a bit of mystery added to Elsie's character here, which I like, because up until now she's felt one-dimensional. Scene 4, 8 pages long. The ghost cat evaporates and reveals what Elsie initially thinks is another cat. The animal spins around to reveal that it's actually a rabid raccoon with red eyes. The raccoon pounces at Elsie, but Patch rushes in and slams against the raccoon. They both fall into the water of a nearby pond and struggle. It appears that the raccoon drowns and Patch survives. Elsie and Patch question what was wrong with the raccoon when, in sort of a comic book jump scare fashion, the raccoon leaps from the water and swipes at Elsie. Elsie, instead of having a reaction, questions what it wants. Again, another character moment for Elsie that didn't feel authentic to me, especially on the receiving end of a jump scare like this. This is becoming a point of frustration I'm having with her character. All right, back to the scene. Before anybody can answer Elsie's question, a rabid fox comes out of nowhere and attacks the raccoon, thereby saving Patch and Elsie. Now, as a writer, I allow myself one lucky moment for my characters. Anything more than that is going to feel forced. There's a great saying, antagonists get lucky, protagonists get unlucky. This really helps up the stakes in a story, unless you're writing a children's book. In a children's book, it seems like adults will frequently swoop in and save the day, like in Harry Potter. I think that's a recent trend, and by recent I mean maybe in the past 20 some odd years. The weird thing is that in the 80s, I feel like kids had more agency to get themselves out of difficult situations. And with this story evoking a Don Bluth 80s vibe, it's strange to see the characters being saved by a random event. But that's okay. You get one before I, as a reader, start to feel that it's getting fishy. Back to the scene. Two more foxes appear and feast on the raccoon and quickly notice that Elsie and Patch are there. There's a chase through the woods until they're back at the tree holding the dead animal control worker. The branches suddenly break and the body falls on top of one of the rabid foxes and sends the other two foxes running. Another very lucky moment that saves our main characters. I wish that Patch and Elsie could have run up the tree and maybe caused the branch to break, which would have given them more agency in this situation. Because right now, they feel very reactive and not very smart. Again, it's sort of frustrating. All right, scene 5, 4 pages long. Now clear from danger, and with no human to save them, Patch agrees that they should go home. Elsie agrees, but first they need to find Lord. A rush of wind swoops Elsie off screen, and it's Lord who has playfully tackled Elsie. He goes on his long ramble about where he was, and I get the sense that he has a very youthful energy and a hard time focusing on things. His ramble ends with, "There's something not right out there." Elsie's response is, "Lord, you're okay." Now, I don't have kids, but I have friends who have kids. If you've ever seen a kid run into the street in front of their parents, you know that that parent is not saying, "Are you okay?" They're yelling at that kid because the parent is scared, and in turn, the child gets scared and starts crying. Granted, Elsie is not Lord's mother, but she's been worrying about him this entire issue, and for her to simply say, "Oh, hey, you're okay," doesn't feel like an honest character reaction to me. Again, kind of frustrating. Back to the scene. Elsie calls out to Patch because she's found Lord. We cut to Patch, who is nursing a wound from the raccoon. Patch's eyes are becoming red, and it's obvious he's become infected. This is really too bad because he's kind of the only character I've liked in the story so far. So the story ends with Patch saying that he's coming, and Elsie and Lord now have someone infected in their group, giving us some suspense as to what will happen when the virus takes over. So that's it for the first issue of Frell. Let's take a look at a 10,000-foot view of the story, but before we do, the Story Grind is brought to you by the stories that I make. Get one of my digital mini comics for free when you join the newsletter and get monthly updates on my writing journey. If you want to see more of my work, check out my novels on Amazon and my comics on Gumroad. Links are below. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Your support means a lot, especially to a small channel like this. So essentially what we have here is a homeward bound type story crossed with a zombie story, where the infected are actually infected with rabies. That's kind of an interesting twist on the zombie genre. I'm honestly surprised that the zombie genre is still going strong after all these years. These genres tend to come in waves. I don't know if it was what happened in 2020 or what, but zombies don't appear to be going away anytime soon, especially with the shows like The Last of Us Part 2 coming out right now. So we have 5 scenes total, with some action in the beginning where the truck flies off the road, some action where Patch fights with the rabid raccoon, and a chase scene where the foxes pursue Elsie and Patch. The inciting incident happens very early on page 6, when the cats escape from the back of the truck, and the second act begins once they're all on the same page and decide to go home on page 21. So what do we know about Elsie, Patch, and Lord Fluffy Britches? We know their situation. They've been taken from their home against their will and their family's will by animal control. The reason could be connected to the rabies outbreak, but we don't know that for sure. And I'm not sure why animal control would go into someone's home and take their cats during a rabies outbreak. We also know that they are indoor cats that are trying to get home. But what do we know about them as characters? Lord Fluffy Britches has a lot of youthful energy. Patch is pretty stubborn. Elsie is very concerned about where Lord is and has some kind of secret about something she's done to him in the past that Lord doesn't know about. This brings me to Elsie's character, which I found absolutely obnoxious in the first issue. Like, making me angry kind of obnoxious. The only thing she says is, "Where's Lord?" Not once, not twice, but 9 times in a 24-page comic. The other thing she does is ask what happened, and then when someone answers her question, she snaps at them and tells them not to treat her like she's stupid. Again, another point that makes me not like this character that much. I think this might be why I like Patch the most out of the group, because he's as annoyed with her as I am. But the creative team does something interesting. They give Elsie a point of guilt. She's done something to Lord in the past that she feels bad about. There's a mysterious layer added to Elsie's character, and she's dealing with some regret. There's something about seeing guilt or regret in a character that makes them immediately interesting to me. And this one tiny inflection of point of guilt saves the character. She's still obnoxious, and some of her reactions don't feel honest, but luckily she finds Lord and can now move on to be a more fleshed out character. In later issues, they do reveal what she did to Lord to make her feel so guilty, but I'm not going to spoil it here. But what's clear to me is that this guilt, or maybe it's a flaw, really made the character more interesting, even though the flaw is a mystery at the start of the story. Again, we have another story where the mystery is a great way to hook a reader in. This is a pretty popular series, and it's gone on for 12 issues so far. It definitely has a following. I think the creative team made a really smart choice in combining the two most popular things in the world, cats and zombies. So what did you think about Frell? And what did you think about Elsie's character? Was she obnoxious or just a concerned older sibling? Did you think her reactions were authentic or flat? Let me know in the comments below. Again, I am writer and artist Dan Finley, and that's it for this episode of The Story Grind. If you like the show, please like, subscribe, hit the bell icon, and share it with your friends. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next episode.